Today we're talking about 10 grammar mistakes that even advanced learners of English make. And the honest truth is that sometimes native speakers make these mistakes too. Seriously, a lot of people make these mistakes. You're not going to make these mistakes anymore because you're watching this video all the way to the end. So you learn all these mistakes and you learn how to say them or write them, use them correctly. Hey everybody, Christopher here from chrisamericos.com, and shout out to everybody in our English Everyday community. I love you guys. And today we're talking about 10 grammar mistakes that even advanced learners of English make. So the first mistake on our list, you might call it a writing mistake. You might call it a spelling mistake. You might call it a punctuation mistake. Whatever you call it, it's still a mistake, because there are two different words that are pronounced it's. Yeah, that's right. There's two different words that have the same pronunciation, it's. One has an apostrophe and one does not have an apostrophe. And that apostrophe is very, very important in English because it actually changes the meaning of this word. If we use it's with no apostrophe, then this tells us that it's possessive. It means that we're talking about whose thing this is. Like if we say his or her, its is a word like this. So as a funny example, we can say the dog drove to our house in its car. This means that the dog drove the car that belongs to the dog, right? The dog has its own car, its own car, without an apostrophe. Now, if we use its with an apostrophe, this tells us that this is two words that we put together into one. It means it is. So we might say, it's nice to meet you. Or we might say, it's a beautiful day today. For both of those examples, we use it's with an apostrophe because we're saying two words, it is. When there's no apostrophe, it's just one word. It tells us whose thing it is. Lots of people make that mistake. Even native speakers, when they're writing, make that mistake all the time. But now, you're not going to make that mistake, right? And if you really want to get good at English, like really, really good, like native good, then you need to practice more. So click the link under this video to go over to English Everyday and practice speaking with me and other native teachers. You'll be happy you did. The second mistake that a lot of people make, it's very similar to the first one, but it's a different word. It's the word your or your. And different people in different English-speaking countries pronounce this a little bit differently because of the vowels and the R sound at the end. So it might sound like yo, or it might sound like your. And different places in different parts of the world can say this word a little differently, but it's all the same because it's still your. But again, what about this apostrophe? We might write it with an apostrophe or we might write it without an apostrophe. Aha, but you're very smart and you've already watched the first mistake in this video. And so you understand that the apostrophe probably means that there's two words. And you would be correct because you're with an apostrophe means you are. Like you're the best English learner on the planet. You are. But if we say you're without the apostrophe, then it's just whose thing this is. Like it's your car. So there are two different meanings, but they sound the same. And the only difference is in writing when we write that apostrophe. And I bet that if you go online and you talk to random people on the internet, you will quickly find a person who does not understand that this is a mistake. And that person might be a native English speaker, which will be pretty funny, because then you can teach them the rule. And that brings us to mistake number 3, which is again similar to the last two mistakes, but this time we have 3 words that are pronounced exactly the same, but they have different meanings. And these words are all pronounced there. Yes, we have there and there and there. They all sound the same. Okay, first let's talk about there, which is the opposite of here. Here, there. So that's a location. Whenever we write it like that, it's a location. But it's also used in other phrases like there are or there is. Okay, what about the second one? There. Well, this one is like your and its. It doesn't have an apostrophe. It's about whose thing this is. So we can say it's their car, means it's the car that belongs to them, right? So that's a different meaning from there, like a location. And then the last one has an apostrophe. So that makes me think, maybe this is more than one word. Maybe it's two words together, right? Like they are. Correct. Yes. So if we have an apostrophe, it's two words, they are, and they're just put together into one word. And if we don't have the apostrophe, then we're looking at which meaning is it, and they're spelled differently. So one of them is like my, your, his, her, our, their, right? It's whose thing it is. And the other one is more like a location, like I'm here and you are there. And again, I just have to laugh at how many native speakers get this wrong all the time. So you now know the rule and you know what's correct, and you can have fun and go on the internet and find lots of people who make mistakes with this, and you can tell them what the rule is. And it'll be a lot of fun because you've just learned the rule and now you can share it with others. The fourth mistake that so many people make, including a lot of native speakers, which means you will know that this is a mistake, but they might not know. The fourth one is, when do we say fewer and when do we say less? Because both of them talk about having a smaller amount of something. So if we say less or if we say fewer, what's the difference? Well, sure, less and few are different words, but is there a rule? Ding, ding, ding. Yes, there is. We use the word less with uncountable nouns, and we use the word fewer with countable nouns. So we might say, he has fewer choices, or she has fewer problems. But if we talk about something like time, which is uncountable, then we have to say less. So we could say, he has less time, or she has less energy. Now, the funny thing about rules is that a lot of times native speakers don't even follow the rules. But here we are learning them and saying this is correct. And people who actually speak the language, who don't care if it's correct or not, they speak differently. And so this is kind of funny, but it's kind of frustrating when you're learning a language too, right? Because you want to be able to speak the right way, the correct way. But what is correct? So it's really important for us to understand that native speakers will mistake less and fewer, and they will make mistakes when they're writing using apostrophes and not using apostrophes. And there are a lot of other mistakes. We still have more mistakes in this video to talk about. But what you need to understand about mistakes is that they're only important if they stop the communication, if they stop you from understanding or from the other person understanding you. So if you are worried about mistakes, the best thing to do is just to get more practice using the language, because you will feel more confident and you will make less mistakes. And when you do make mistakes, you'll know how to handle that situation. And if you need more practice, click the link under this video to practice speaking English with native teachers every day. So now let's talk about the next mistake that a lot of English learners make. Not a lot of native speakers make this mistake because it's related to a very basic rule. And that's the difference between the words me and I. And the reason native speakers don't make mistakes with this is because I is a subject pronoun and me is an object pronoun, and we need to use the correct word to show the correct direction of the sentence. So when there's a verb, the verb goes to the object. The verb is done by the subject, and I is the subject pronoun. So when I do something, I use the word I. I run, I speak, I jump, I walk, I bark like a dog, roof, roof. But when somebody else does the verb, does the action, and that action goes to me, then I have to use the word me. not I. So this is the main difference between these two words, and using them correctly shows the correct direction of the verb in the sentence.
All right, there's no need to bark at me.
The next mistake that we need to talk about is very confusing, and most native speakers don't use it correctly. They don't care about using it correctly. And if they knew how to use it correctly, it probably would not stop them from using it incorrectly. So this rule that we're going to talk about doesn't matter so much, but for someone who's learning English, it might seem like it's very, very important. So what is the difference between the words who and whom?
Whom. Sometimes it's who.
Have you even heard someone use the word whom before? There are some old phrases in English that include the word whom, and in those cases, I would always use the word whom, but only in those special cases, those special sentences with those special phrases, and other situations where I'm thinking about what I'm going to say and not using a standard phrase, I'm not going to say whom. So I believe the word whom is old, that people do not really use it that much anymore. It's antiquated, and so is that word. But if you look at an English textbook, if you look in a dictionary, if you look online, everywhere they're going to tell you that there are rules about when to use who and whom. And I'm going to tell you, just don't use whom. And anyone who's using whom is trying to apply old grammar, old rules. And today, most people do not use that word ever. Now, if you're a literature professor, then you're going to have a different opinion, and you're going to say, here's when you should use it, and here's why people use it. But still, in everyday speech, people don't use it that much. So that's the first rule to think about. Do people actually use it? But when it comes down to grammar behind these two words, well, I've already explained it to you, because our last mistake, the difference between I and me, it's the same as who and whom. Who is the subject of the sentence, and whom is the object. So using these two different words helps us understand the direction of the verb in the sentence. But usually we can understand the direction of the verb in the sentence based on the sentence structure. And the person who's speaking, the person who's listening, can usually understand the difference between using who as a subject and who as an object. And that's why they don't usually have to say whom. Native speakers also like to put prepositions at the end of the sentence, which breaks all the rules, but they do it all the time. And that's why they might ask a question like, who are you talking to? Instead of asking, to whom are you talking? So is this one a mistake, or is it not a mistake? Should we follow these rules if the books and the dictionaries say that we have these rules? Or should we just follow what people actually say in real life, because it will make us sound strange to follow a rule that nobody else follows? Write in the comments under this video and let me know your opinion. And let's go to the next mistake. And this one is a mistake that a lot of English learners make. I hear it all the time, mistaking the words since and for when talking about time periods. And so here's the difference. This one's pretty simple and straightforward. You can say since when something happened from a point in time in the past. So we can say, I've been making a video since 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock is the point in time that started this process. So everything started at 12. We can say since 12. But it could also be a negative verb, like I haven't talked to her since 10 o'clock. This means 10 o'clock was the starting point of not talking to her. Now, this is different than talking about the duration or the time period. And for that, we use the word for. We can say, I have been talking with her for 10 minutes. That means the length of time of us talking is 10 minutes. It doesn't tell me the starting point. We can figure that out, but it tells me the amount of time. So you want to use since when you have the point in time, and you want to use for when you have the period of time. Great. Another mistake that I hear a lot from my English learner students, and sometimes from the members of our English everyday community, is using the word to with modal verbs. But modal verbs are special snowflakes. Oh, after modal verbs, we do not use to in the infinitive. What? What am I talking about? Well, we have a video that tells you about when to use gerunds and infinitives, so you can go to our channel and you can get all the details there. But in short, let me tell you about this. After modal verbs, you can use the infinitive, but you can't use the word to. So with a regular verb like want, that's not a modal verb, you can say something like, I want to go home. I want, and then we have the infinitive, to go home. I want to go home. But with a modal verb, we take to out. So it's I should, which is a modal verb, I should go home. We don't say I should to go home. It's still the infinitive, but we don't say to after modal verbs. So you can find a big list of modal verbs. You can go to the video on our channel about modal verbs, and you can learn more about this. But after modal verbs like can, could, should, will, may, might, all of these kinds of words, after those we don't say to, we just say the infinitive. All right, the number 9 mistake that we're going to be talking about today is when we use the wrong prepositions with verbs. Some verbs have specific prepositions that go with them. For example, the verb to marry someone. We cannot say to marry for someone, or marry to someone, or marry on someone. We don't say any of these things. In English, we just say to marry someone. So here we don't have to use a preposition.
I married him.
But then we have the verb to be married. And you can say to be married to a person. So we can say Maria married John, not married to John. She married him. Maria married John. And now Maria is married to John.
Betty is married to him?
Every time that you learn a new verb, try to learn the prepositions that go with that verb. And finally, we are here at number 10, the mistake that so many people make. Native speakers make it, advanced students make it, beginners make it, everybody makes it. And I don't know why, because it seems so easy, but people keep making this mistake. And this mistake is the rule of double negatives. You cannot have two negatives in the same sentence. So it's a mistake to say, I don't know nothing.
Well, I don't know nothing.
But you will hear people say this in films, in TV shows. You'll hear native speakers say it, and it doesn't mean that they're not native speakers, but it does mean that they're breaking a rule. And so it's not technically correct. English is full of these balancing math equations where you have a negative on one side, so you can't have a negative on the other side.
Mister, I don't know nothing.
Because if a person says, I don't know nothing, then they don't know nothing. So this means they do know something, right? And that's confusing because probably they want to say, I don't know anything. I don't know, negative, anything, positive. I don't know anything.
I don't know anything.
This is why it's very important to learn the positive, negative, and question structures of different types of sentences and sentence formation. Again, you can find a video on our channel about that topic, or the best way to improve your English is just to practice speaking it. This will improve your writing, this will improve your reading, it will improve your listening. Speaking is the gateway that improves all the other skills. And that's why I want to invite you to a speaking practice lesson. Click the link under this video, come join English Every Day, and get the speaking practice you need to become fluent in English. I'll see you at the next lesson. Bye-bye.